Okay, let's get started. This is all around making friends. Now, I think this is one of the hardest things for any of us in our adult life is to make authentic, deep friendships. It's something that when we're young, it's so easy. We're like, we can be friends with everyone, or we can have our little groups that we're friends with, and it's generally a lot easier. As we get older, life happens, our protectors get stronger, we get hurt by people, all these different things that come together to sort of create either isolation, or we may have lots of friends but no deep friends. So maybe lots of acquaintances, but not many people where we can really be vulnerable and authentic with. Or we might be on the other side where we feel pretty isolated, especially if you're in the personal development and you're starting to really get to know yourself. That can be a really common thing, is to realize maybe the people that you've been around are no longer healthy for you. So you may go through a period of time where there is a little bit of loneliness and isolation because you're rebuilding your life, yourself, and your friendships. So there's that side of things too. So today I want to talk about why it's so hard to make friendships and how our protector, our thinking processes, our stories impact this, as well as our nervous system. So the stories we tell ourselves about other people, or ourselves, which are shaped by shame and parts and past relationships. So there's two areas that I speak into: the stories, so that's more the distorted thinking, and this comes from either shame or past negative experiences. And then the other side of it is the nervous system response. So the nervous system response is more around our fear response, our default fear response when we feel unsafe around certain people. So before I go into it, I want to talk about the evolution of our personal growth. And I'm not going to go into like this big story, but what I what I'm bringing in is what it's like compared to, like, when we're younger, we're generally more just in the moment. We are very identified with our personality, and we don't sort of have an observer on board. So what that means is, if I'm anxious, I will think that I am an anxious person. Or if I am really intelligent at one thing or really good at sports, that's who I am. So that's my identity. And as we develop, as we become less I am this, like identified with this personality, we start to develop in personal development. So we do this because we've had challenges in our life that are either patterns and reoccurring, and we realize that something needs to change. So we get to a point in our life where something negative's happened. We've had maybe abusive relationships, or maybe we've had really negative experiences at work, and we just like, what do I need to do to change my life? Like, what sort of changes do I need to make? When we hit that point, then we start to become curious. We become curious about our psychology, our psyche, our just why challenging things happen to us. We become curious in terms of, we start listening to podcasts and YouTube clips, we start reading books, and we start to really become aware of our ourself, our psychology, our who we really are outside of social identities and norms and things like that. And so as we develop, we then start to, question different things, and we start to become more aware and integrate parts of ourselves that maybe we didn't know existed. So if I've really identified with being the sporty kid, maybe I didn't actually know that I'm quite intelligent. I just wasn't taught in a way that suited my intelligence. So this is where we start to identify less. And once we do that, so we start to go from reacting, I am, this is happening to me, and I am my experience. So what that means is like, I am not good enough, I'm not strong enough, or they're hurting me, I've got to hurt them back. So we're reacting in that space. To responding, there's a part of me that feels hurt, or there's a part of me that's experiencing this. It's not all of who I am, but there's a part of me, and I'm noticing that this experience is making me sad. This experience is making me feel powerless. So that's when we start to identify less. And it's all going to come together why I'm bringing this in, because our thinking processes really connect with this. Our protectors connect with this part of us. So let's go into protectors. When we all want, I would say we all want relationships, right? We all want to have relationships in our life, deep, connected relationships, and we're wired for it as humans. So what gets in the way? Our protector gets in the way of this. I'm breaking it up into 4 little humans, and you'll see another 2 on the next page. The first one you've got here, and there's no, like, they're not in any order. The first one, the first human has a protector that lacks trust with others and believes they already know. They devalue other people's opinion. This tends to happen when this person, so they're like having lots of fun maybe with someone, and all of a sudden something gets real and they get feedback from someone. This is where they will devalue the feedback, and it reinforces a belief that I can't trust other people, so I've really got to be super independent. And this so I associate and then also they associate self-reflection with reinforcing belief that I'm not good enough. So what I mean by this is there are people out there with a protector on board, and you may know a friend like this, you may have people around like this, you might be like this, where you are really good to maybe to do surface level fun things with people, but as soon as it gets deep and there's a conflict, the flight response will come in. And the way that it can come in is by devaluing the person in front of you. And that's in a distorted thinking. So devaluing them, denying that you've done anything wrong, and not having the ability to self-reflect. Because if I accept that maybe I made a mistake, it may reinforce a belief that there's something wrong with me. And I'm trying to run away from that because that feels like shame. So generally, this is more of a person who's got an avoidant attachment. And as you know, when we avoid things, there's reason for it. There's reasons for us to being like that, which I've said in other videos before. So this person also believes that vulnerability is weak. And these sort of protectors, they don't come out until things get serious in a relationship. There's conflict, they get negative feedback, or they just get offended by something. And I'm going to get to that. I'm probably spending too much time on one. So then let's get to the next one. Reinforcing belief that I'm not valuable. This is more for people who are more inclined to be anxiously attached. So lack trust with self and believe everyone else is capable and I'm not. I believe others are better than me and devalue myself. So the first one devalues others, and the second one, who's more anxiously attached, devalues self. So I'm not good enough, everyone else is better than me. I put other people up on a pedestal. I have a deep belief that the only way out of this situation is possibly by being rescued. Now, these situations too that I'm bringing in are subconscious a lot of the time until we bring it into our awareness. So we don't know that the protector's thinking and doing this until we start to bring awareness to these experiences. Okay, so then we've got the next 2 little humans. Now, there's also people who have both. So I don't trust other people and I'm hyper independent, as well as I don't trust myself and I need other people. So there's that 2 conflicting things happening. And this is more of a disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment. And with this, I will push healthy people away from me because I don't trust them. I don't trust their motives. I believe that they're just doing it because of their own, they don't have my best interests at heart. And I also don't trust I can ever be supported or helped. Like there's no hope for me. Generally, again, this is on a subconscious level. So I believe that no one can support me because deep down I believe I'm broken, and people who try to support me have ulterior motives. So I devalue healthy support and don't trust that anyone can help me. Now, obviously, being in these states can be really difficult, but this is what is ultimately stopping us from connecting. So let's go into more of a, this is a safe, the fourth human that I've got here, a safe space. So this is where I feel safe and secure, creating safe relationship with self and others. So I observe, I have an observer on board. I'm aware of my protector and practicing not allowing my default fear response rule my behavior and decisions. Through self reflection, activation work, and curiosity, I'm strengthening my observer so I can improve myself and make healthier decisions. I don't shame myself when I make mistakes and let my protector rule my behavior. This is definitely a practice. This is what you're both doing here, where you're, coming to these master classes, you're developing your observer and that part of you that doesn't identify with all these other areas that I've just spoken about. So your observer is looking at it from a non-judgmental perspective, and is also strengthening as you do more and more personal development and therapy and that sort of thing. So that's the 4 areas. Now, why does this count with what I'm bringing in? So firstly, we have the stories we tell ourselves. With the 4 people I've brought in, the stories we'll tell ourselves will be very much connected to those attachment styles. So distorted thinking in friendships, that and I'll give you an example. I'll give you examples of this. These are not negative thoughts, they're actually inaccurate, and they come from old wounds. And you'll see what I mean by this as we go on. So again, I'm going to recommend Byron Katie's work for this, because she talks about whether things are fact and how do you know it's a fact. Because often our distorted thinking feels true, but it's actually inaccurate, and it's from past, it's bias. So it means it's from past experiences that we're attached to. The protector stories, your brain tells you to avoid pain, especially rejection, disappointment, or not being enough. So that's what our protector does. It's constantly trying to protect us, but it's also distorted at the same time. So interesting. Now, point 2, which is more using the nervous system. So think about your default mode. We all have one. I have one. Everyone has one around when I feel fear. So our nervous system shapes how you relate. So it shapes how you relate with others. Your nervous system scans for safety or danger. When it detects threat, even emotionally, it responds in survival mode. So fight, I will blame, criticize, argue. Flight, overthink, avoid, withdraw. Freeze, numb out, dissociate. And fawn, people please, overfunction, disappear into others. I don't know what I've got there. But so what it's actually saying is distorted thinking is often a sign your nervous system is activated. So this is not who we are. It's just our default mode of when we are feeling unsafe, we will default to one of these, or we can default throughout these as well. So it will vary with person to person, situation to situation. And this is the fear response that comes in. So distorted thinking that devalue or push away healthy connection. And I spoke about that with the 4 people. So these are going to be the things that I'm looking at. Distorted thinking from a place of there is something wrong with me, which is what we spoke about. And distortion isn't just about fear. Sometimes it's about false safety. So we've got the 3 people that I was talking about. So we've got, say, if you're more avoidant leaning, you don't trust others. If you're more disorganized or fearful avoidant, it's called as well, you don't trust others and self. And then if you're more anxious, what can happen is this third option, which is I may falsely feel safe. And it's also actually with all the options, sorry, just to be clear, I may feel safe with people that feel familiar, but actually are not that safe. So it just feels familiar. And we'll get to that. Distorted thinking that devalues or push healthy connections away. Now, that's the first person, the more avoidant leaning. When you finally encounter someone who is emotionally available, calm, or kind, your body may not recognize it as safe. This is very interesting. Instead, it may feel unfamiliar, vulnerable, or even threatening because it doesn't match the survival pattern you've practiced. So you might be thinking, well, what do I do then? What do I do with this? And I will get to that. It's often being able to feel through it and do the opposite to what you usually do. When we devalue someone, we're doing that to get away as well. Often our flight response comes in. So here's some examples. They're too much, too intense. So if we think that, the distorted thought, they're too needy, I barely know them and they're already opening up. Why it happens. So why do we have this? Emotional intimacy feels unfamiliar or overwhelming. So that's the fear response that comes in when it's even if it's someone that just wants to get close. How we treat them. So this is our nervous system comes in. Pull away emotionally or physically, ghost or delay response. We may also judge them for being too emotional or weak. This is a common thing that I get when people are in their avoidant. They can be quite judgmental towards someone who is feeling vulnerable or weak, and just say that that's like a bad thing in a way. This is boring. There's no spark. Distorted thought. They're nice, but there's no chemistry. I need more excitement. This is common in relationships and when dating as well, or even in friendships. Why it happens? You're mistaking nervous system dysregulation, anxiety, chaos for connection. How we treat them: lose interest quickly, seek drama or unavailable people instead, sabotage the connection by picking fights or withdrawing. So these are just some examples. Okay, so moving on to distorted thinking from a place of there is something wrong with me. This is more anxiously attached leaning and disorganized. See, I can't see that one. I think it says they'll leave me when they see who I really am. I can't actually see that. You might be able to see it. There's a thing in the way for me. I'm too much, too sensitive, too messy. I always ruin things. So that's the distorted thinking. Why it happens? Past experiences taught you that love is conditional. So generally, the relationships you've had in the past have taught you that you have to be a different person to be loved. How we treat them: we hide parts of ourselves, over explain or apologize constantly, pull away to avoid rejection. Okay, I don't deserve that. I think it's interesting. I won't be able to see those. My bar's in the way for that. They're making a mistake choosing me. I haven't earned this. You equate worth with perfection or performance. How we treat them: reject compliments or gestures, try to earn love by overgiving, push them away to protect them from us. So these are happening on a subconscious level until we become aware of these patterns. And that's what therapy does. It brings awareness to this, so it's no longer happening on a subconscious level. Distortion isn't just about about fear. Sometimes it's about false safety. So that's what we were speaking into. I feel drawn to them. They even though they don't treat me well. Distorted thought: there's something about them I can't explain. It just feels right. Familiar emotional patterns like chasing, unpredictability, or neglect feel like home. Or often when I hear they chose me, or that, it's generally connected to this. It's connected to, like, I have to earn that love, and this is a good example of that familiar but not actually healthy and safe. How we treat safe people: view them as boring or uninteresting, prioritize emotionally unavailable people, confuse intensity with intimacy. I feel calm around them, but I don't think I really like them. I should feel butterflies if it's real. The calmness must mean that we're not compatible. why it happens. Calm nervous system states are familiar and misinterpreted as lack of attraction. Misread regulation. So how we treat safe people, we misread regulation as boredom, seek out more activated, anxious, avoidant dynamics, and end the connection prematurely. So there's a few more in this one is actually really important because what I have found with this one is when people are like charming, this one says charismatic, they're magnetic and make me feel seen, but I always feel a little on edge. This is generally the dynamic when we fall into a narcissistic dynamic because they can be really charming, they can make us feel so seen and wanted, and they really have this way of meeting your needs and connecting with you on this level where you feel deeply seen. Your nervous system mistakes external charm for emotional safety because that's what past relationships look like, attention without attunement. So this is the false empathy, the false charm is like often charm is like I often look at charm as anytime someone's really charming, feel into the body to actually feel what's really happening there. Because if you're feeling on edge, there's a false persona there. How we treat safe people, overlook steady, warm presence for flashier personalities, feel bored or disconnected with emotionally available partners, chase validation from those who excite us but don't truly see us. So, how do we get to a place of how do I know who's safe to be friends with? How do I know, if I'm falling into these fearful default experiences? I want authentic, deep connection. What I always talk about is respond versus react. So anytime I'm reacting, I would get curious about that. So they looked at me funny when they said, so this is a distortion. They looked at me funny because we're assuming off. So distortions means that I'm assuming I know what that person's thinking and why they're behaving in the way that they are. So I will make a story up of why that is without actually getting the information directly from them. They're judging me, so that's the distortion. Reactive behavior, you get defensive, sarcastic, or shut down. You start justifying yourself aggressively or avoid them altogether. What's underneath? I feel insecure and afraid I'm not good enough. So that's what's underneath. When you do therapy, you get to that point so you know what it actually really feels like rather than your default might be to defend, argue, shut down, whatever the default is. That's the easy thing that we turn to. The bit more challenging thing is to self-reflect and find what truly is happening. So what it might sound like if you were honest. I felt exposed, small just now, like I was being criticized. Can you clarify what you meant? It's a really beautiful way of doing that. We can only do this though with people who are willing to lean in with us. So this is where you will know if the friendship is something you want to keep, because this person who can really hear you when you're being vulnerable and you're letting them know how you deeply feel and then asking them a question to clarify and they meet you there, that's when you know it's a healthy friendship. So distortion, I can't see what I've put there, but I trust that you both can. So the reactive behavior, you raise your voice, blame them, or flip the conversation on them. You emotionally withdraw or ghost. Oh, they're attacking me. There we go. I can see it now. So this is an interesting one because I've often seen the distortion in this. They're attacking me. And so the distortion is they might be giving you feedback. They might be giving you maybe they're upset with you. And it feels like an attack because in the past, you've got conditioning around when someone's stern with you or direct or giving you feedback, it feels like an attack. So the reaction is you raise your voice, blame them, flip the conversation, or you emotionally withdraw or ghost. It's very common. What's underneath? I feel hurt and overwhelmed. I'm afraid I'm being misunderstood or abandoned. What it might sound like if you were honest. When you said that, I felt really raw and defensive. It hit something deeper than just this moment. There's something really beautiful about communicating your inner experience when that we feel attacked, or that there's the distortion or the story there. For someone to be able to meet you in that too, it's quite mature. It's really mature. They think I'm stupid. You over-explain, get defensive, or try to prove your intelligence. You shut down and mentally replay everything you said. What's underneath? I feel embarrassed and afraid I'm being seen as not enough. What it might sound like if you were honest. I noticed I got really self-conscious just now. I felt judged or dismissed, and that's hard for me. And notice in yourself if someone, rather than doing the reactive behavior, lent in with what they could say from a place of authenticity and honesty, how that would feel and land, as opposed to the reactive behavior. It's so much more connected, and there's more empathy for self and other in that space, more room to build connection and lean in. Okay, respond. So here is the way that you can do this. When you become upset with a friend or a partner, check in. So often we want to go out and yell, or we might want to withdraw and just kind of protect ourselves. Being able to understand your pattern in this and check in, what fear response am I having right now? On other videos, I've got where am I on the nervous system ladder? To the feeling and emotion. So you also want to check into the feeling and emotion if you can. If you can't, that's where therapy also supports you to go underneath. To your thoughts as well. What thoughts am I having? What's the story I'm telling myself? Becoming really curious instead of assuming the story, which is the distortion. When we don't know, the reason why it's a distortion is it's not because it's negative, it's because it's not accurate. We need to get, if we wanted the accuracy, we'd have to get facts from that person to be like, what is happening for you? Are you upset with me? And that's where we need to lean in with curiosity and groundedness, if possible. It's not always possible. What do their actions consistently show? So this is where you can decide what a healthy relationship and friendship really looks like. Do they repair after conflict, or do they ghost, withdraw, and run away? Do they stay consistent, or do they kind of sometimes show up for you and sometimes they make you feel not great about yourself? Do they have good communication and respect your boundaries? And these are things that you can look for. Or do they make you feel bad or guilty? Do they shame you for having boundaries? These are all things to ask yourself when you're looking at friendships. Ultimately, emotions don't lie. So our stories, and we've got distortions, they absolutely can create inaccurate information, but our emotions are not lying to us. So if I feel hurt, I feel hurt. That's what I'm feeling. The story that the person did it on purpose, or they meant to hurt us, or all those things that we create, we forget that they have their own experience as well. And in that process, we may miss an opportunity to connect with someone that maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they weren't wanting to attack us and they had our best interests at heart. Maybe they did mean it. And that's where we can discern what's healthy and what's not. And that's a practice. It's very much a practice. So identify the emotion, the story attached to the emotion, and the reactive response. Bring your observer on board, the part of you that is present, grounded, and adult-like. It's generally like the higher self. And communicate with your observation of yourself, which is the examples that I gave you. Distorted thinking isn't truth, it's our protection. It keeps you from being vulnerable, seen, and connected. You keep listening to it, you'll keep running from healthy relationships and towards what's familiar, such as disconnection, chaos, or loneliness. Healing begins when we recognize distortion and choose a new path rooted in safety and growth. So that is today's session. I would love to hear your thoughts around what you learnt. What stood out for you? What was, yeah, the thing that stood out for you? Glenda, you can go for it. I see you.
I guess it's the stories we tell ourselves and how we tell them. And then our intuition kicks in and you sort of, it all gets too distorted and you go, I can't be bothered with this.
Yeah, the flight response then comes in.
Yeah, yeah. It's really quite interesting.
And tell me
Mm.
experience when you feel like it gets too distorted. Is that like what happens then?
Um, Gee, I just shut down pretty much.
Ah, yeah, there you go. So the nervous system is like autonomically, it's like shutting down.
Mm. Yeah. And then I just go, can't be bothered. I'm done.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah.
that's interesting. So, you may need space. It may need time and space to just come back to self to be able to,
Yes.
yeah, address whatever it is. Does that feel right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And sit with it and just then, like, it's quite amazing how it can come to you. And I find with me lately, it's comes to me in my sleep.
Oh, wow.
And then I sort of not in the morning, but in and around the space of getting up and doing stuff and whatever, I then have like a bit of an epiphany. Oh, well, drop my phone. And then I go, not all the time, not all the time, but yeah, it's just not letting the nervous system take over.
Do you know what it is? Is also the nervous system naturally, autonomically, so it will take over, and that's the hard part. But what I'm hearing is for you, it's like um, this radical acceptance of, oh, I need time and space because once I have that, I may have a dream. I'll get an epiphany. Like you, so your process is a bit different to someone else's process, and that
Mm,
we're all a bit different. Some of us need space, but it's almost like once you get this, once you get regulated, you get those dreams or drop-ins that can support you. So you could play around with that. Even when you're having a heated moment, you can be like, I'm going to step away and just care for myself and come back when I feel I can.
that's what I've been doing.
No,
Mm,
really naturally
yeah. Oh, yeah, it all takes time.
it
Yeah.
does.
So,
And
yeah.
what are you finding are the benefits of doing it in that way for you?
Well, I'm quite a reactive person, so if I'm feeling threatened or something like that, or I'm sort of a trigger or whatever, I can sort of jump straight in and just throw it back um, with words. But I'm learning to actually pull back and take the breath and step back and then move away and just then calm down and just, take the space and
Yeah.
then sort of work through it from there. And then it's actually quite amazing what comes to you.
I love that. So have you, I always tell clients to gather the evidence. So do you feel like you just said it's quite amazing what comes to you? So from now you've gone from in the past you were more reactive. There was a part of you that was more reactive. Now you've shifted that. And I always often say like doing the opposite. And now you're taking a breath, pulling back. And you said, um, it's amazing what comes. And what's come from that?
Oh, just
Yeah.
clarity of the situation and also, your part in it, and also taking on board other people's parts.
Oh, that's so great.
Mm, Yeah, whereas previously I'd take on other people's parts as well and go, you know, like, huh, what did they say that to me for? I don't like that attitude, or, you know, whatever, even though I still might not like it. I
Yeah.
just go, well, do you know what? Not my problem. I'm still going to say my piece, or, you know, whatever it may be, but then think about how you're going to say it. Because the
Oh,
reaction first is like, you feel like just going straight for the jugular. But that doesn't help or solve anything. So, yeah,
yes. Yeah,
these are
fantastic.
things I'm discovering.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Great. Thank you for giving us such a good example of that. Like I feel like that you've just given us a fantastic example of doing it differently to create more connection rather than being that defensive, reactive mode.
Mm. Yeah, it's for me, it's taking responsibility of every, like, of your part and how you played whatever part within it, and then just looking at it and going, oh, okay, could have done that better, or, you know, whatever. So yeah,
Fantastic. Yeah,
yeah,
and just for the people also watching is like being able to say, I have my experience, this is my part, and this is their part. It's exactly what you were saying, Glenda, because often we can either go, it's all their fault, or we can go, like you said, I take on a lot of the responsibility in the past where I took on everything rather than, oh, they have their process and their part, I have mine.
mm,
So
mm,
that's so good.
yeah.
Fantastic. Great.
Thank you.